The philosophy to movement, it's something that, it happened. It happens, like Bruce Lee said, I don't hit, it hits, it happened to me. I was just moving, I was just, doing martial arts, and then I got into capoeira, which was a lot more movement, basically. And it struck me, I was in love, I was in this romance with capoeira for 15, 16 years, basically thinking of myself as capoeira. I always said, like, how can I stop capoeira? I am capoeira. You can't stop what you are. And with the search of bettering myself and my students, I started to teach very early, and I had a big following back home, a lot of students. I opened up a training center, started to develop everyone, and I was searching for tools, I was searching for answers and trying to get to the next level. And that got me to research more and more, get into other stuff, because the answers were not there. They're not part of capoeira. For example, you do BJJ, but there is no much information on how to keep your body healthy while doing BJJ, inside BJJ. You have to go out and search for other tools. And I was searching for those tools, and while doing it, I kind of lost track. And I ended up actually enjoying other stuff and doing them not for the sake of capoeira anymore. And that got me into the realization that what is the connection there? What is this invisible thread that goes through all these disciplines? And it was movement.
Did you feel like you were betraying capoeira in the beginning?
Oh, 100%, yeah.
So it was like a lover to you?
Yeah, everything was for capoeira, and I thought of myself as that, and it was extremely difficult to make the transition. So at first I kind of had to cheat myself that I'm still doing it for those reasons, but eventually had to face it and realize it, and then communicate it also with my students. And that got into a very interesting point where nowadays I believe it's not about what you want to learn. It's about what the teacher want to teach you. And people hate hearing it. If you find a real teacher, and if you find a real process, it doesn't matter what he teaches, what it teaches, what she teaches. It just matters that you found that thing. And so if I'll find a real violin teacher, I'll study violin. Mastery of everything is the mastery of mastery. It's the mastery of yourself. And
so you're saying people are searching for the truth. They might not necessarily, even at your seminar this weekend, be searching for movement. They might be searching for direction.
100%. They come to me because they think they know what I do, and actually it's so far from what they think they know what I do. But then I change their mind about it, and then they want to do this thing. Not in a bad way, in a way that I present to them a bigger, better thing, a bigger dogma. You must choose a dogma still. You must have some form of a leading dogma in your practice, in your life, because you came to do one thing, and maybe you've done it. And when you've done it, it's a bad day.
Because then it's over.
It's over. And then you can make the obvious choice, next challenge. But at a certain point you realize, I'm gonna get all this stuff, or I'm not gonna get all this stuff. But anyways, there is something bigger that must lead me here. Like I remember the first day I got a one-arm handstand. I was like 3 years focused on this skill.
That's how long it took you.
Yeah.
And you started from a very strong base.
And actually, I started, you can say it's a strong base compared to another person, but I'll tell you, some of my students learned how to do a one-arm handstand under the process that I offered in 3 months. It took me 3 years, and I did it myself. I taught myself. I had very little communication with people who could do it, and I had to kind of create a process for myself. The day I got it was a weird day. And it was, what now? This emptiness hits you. And it's with everything big, with making your first million, with anything big. And then after it happens enough times, you start to realize that you have to kind of operate on a different dogma. These challenges are not enough, and that changes what you are searching inside what you do, or it changes what you do. From the outside, it's very hard to understand what we're doing. So what we are actually doing is we're showing only the outer shells of our practice. And because the inner stuff, the inner shells are not well presented in a media setting, nor in a book. And they can only be experienced on a very personal level. But let's really discuss it honestly, and I'll try to get across a little bit of what we do. When a person comes to us, we start by developing kind of a core practice, and that core practice changes. There is no one core, but by individualizing the kind of core perspective, we might develop some basic strength. We might kind of invest some time in protecting joints and articulations. We will develop some basic mobility. And then we will start to feed more and more movement nutrition, which is a phrase that I coined a few years ago. Basically, I look at movement as food, and the necessity to chew up on stuff and develop your teeth and your digestive tract. So we start to take all of these abilities and skills, and we start to develop an intelligent mover, someone who can deal with ever-changing environments. And it means learning new stuff constantly, never being master of anything. I never mastered anything. I'm not a master, although this title has been put on me, I don't like it. These core elements are usually kind of developing a basic control, upper body strength, lower body strength, the ability to do some basic human skills like squat and transition from lying down to standing up, and sprint and hang, and then going into the real fun stuff. Once that is addressed, and then you can really explore, and it's an endless thing. So for example, one day I'll wake up and I'll do a martial art practice, or boxing, or I'll go to BJJ class and work there. The next session I'll go take a contemporary dance improvisation class. The next I will do a strength session to make sure all these basic skills are there. Then I'll go rock climbing. Then I just keep on. In my eyes, you must choose a dogma. There has to be a leading thing in your life, that dictates the methods, that dictates the goals. But people confuse these three things very often. And for example, they will set up goals that have no relationship with the dogma. They're related to the methods. Then they will fail achieving the goals because the dogma is not connected to these goals, and the methods are not producing the right results. And then they will change the methods instead of realizing maybe they should change the goals or change the dogma. It's very difficult to do. Changing your dogma takes guts. It takes bravery. It takes courage, because you live for long periods of time with ideas of who you are, and then you realize that's not who I am, and can be a very dark moment. So eventually you kind of are very careful in the way that you form your dogmas, and I was very careful. So after 15-16 years in capoeira, I didn't make the next mistake of being an acrobat, being, a dancer. I realized I love movement on all of its shades. Utilitarian movement, artistic movement, breathing, any form of mind-body connection. And if it's just kind of a Descartesian existence from the head up, a very cognitive, then I'm not so interested. It's always about the connection to the body. And that's why I use that dogma, and I think it's a good dogma to have. It's wide enough for me to shift and move, and I have room for movement literally inside this dogma, and I can change what I do. I'm not the handstand guy. I'm not the gymnastics guy. I was never a gymnast.
Right.
I use whatever works for my movement dogma. So the tools, the methods are borrowed from a lot of these isolated aspects, but my dogma is bigger. You can go after aesthetics and get some nice benefits with movements until a certain point, but then it's over. And notice how people say, they still make the mistake and say, he looks very strong. No, you can't know if he's strong or not. You have no way to know because it's comprised of so many different elements. And even strength is not a very reliable predictor of movement, as you know from grappling.
Yeah.
So we're still making these mistakes. Yeah, this needs to be corrected. It's a very large talk about like working on your weaknesses. Working on your weaknesses requires sometimes a completely different set of tools. It's not about strength. It's not about, like, there is so much stuff happening in the mental game, in the development of movement patterns, coordination, the formation of habits and balance, the ability to react to changing environments. So give me the guy with the biggest engine, but if he can't manipulate the car, throw him in a BJJ match and he can't do anything. He's missing the tools. Very realistic tools so you can get dirty. And we don't like to hear it. We don't like to hear that things get dirty in movement, in martial arts. We don't like to hear that it's not a probability, it's a certainty that it's going to happen. You're going to go out of alignment, you're going to get, held in a choke for a bit too long, and the best processes take this into account, and they anti-fragilize, as Nassim Taleb says, the person. Instead of just making things optimal, that's important, but you have to support it with anti-fragilizing the practitioner, especially in martial arts, where the chaotic environment is problematic. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. You have to use trauma to to get bulletproof from trauma, but in the right quantities. Use stress versus de-stress, just enough. You use stressors to condition the iron. That's how you do it, and also in a mindset that is not expecting predictable results. That's the most dangerous thing. We're planning and we're going to get this result. It's not humble and it's not real. Learning how to react to changing environments, like breaking your hand in a boxing fight. And then you have to finish the fight with this broken hand inside. And you can see the people that come in from a certain perspective are able, for example, to switch their stance, place that hand behind, protect it, while others just have to give up. Okay, I broke my hand, it's over. Many legendary boxing fights have been won with broken limbs. There is one dogma. I believe there is one major dogma. Each person has one major thing, the biggest driving force. And then there are many other kind of supporting dogmas and ideas, and then there is the methods as well, which are confused with dogmas sometimes. So for example, movement is my dogma. It's not health, which means I'm not doing everything in my power to be the healthiest. I'm doing everything in my power to move well. Sometimes it go hand in hand, but sometimes they separate. These two things go hand in hand until a certain point, and then they start to separate. So sacrifice and success is very much like that. Success measured by money is not on top of my list. Just not. And I'm not doing things optimally in that regard, and I've sacrificed a lot of stuff for that. I've turned down large sums of money. It would have been very common for me to say I'm moving my health optimally and my movement optimally, and it goes hand in hand. I'm not going to lie to you. It does move hand in hand until a certain point, but I've been moving 8, 9, 10 hours a day for the last 10 years. I've passed that point. I am a very healthy person, but maybe I could have been even healthier. I intend to live long, but maybe I sacrificed a few good years and because of my movement choices. So it's all about sacrifices and keeping it very real and realizing that every choice is pulling the shirt and all the fibers of the shirt are being affected. You're not going to place these 3 points and they're all going to coexist perfectly together.
You must get people ask you all the time, what should I do?
The simplest answer is there is no simple answer, and you need to do research. You need a practice. Everybody needs a practice, a physical practice. You need to look at it in that way. There is no difference between your weight training, running, BJJ. It's all movement practice. So first thing, change your titles. The more you age, the more you need to decentralize your efforts. You're not a martial artist, you're a mover. You're not a fitness guy, you don't try to keep fit. You want to move, you want to have a practice around it, you want to research your body, you want to work with it, and it starts with simple stuff. We promoted stuff like squatting 30 minutes a day for 30 consecutive days. Just accumulate, not in one go, just accumulated time spending in a squat.
Down in a squat.
In a squat, in a flat
30
foot squat.
minutes a day.
Because that's the original use behind the squat, not getting stronger. That's the fitness perspective. The movement perspective is it's a resting position.
Before we had chairs. That's what you said.
Exactly. Other thing is like I really recommend that you do some hanging. You need to hang from stuff. You're supposed to do that with those shoulders. Which means if I don't see any anchor points around, it's not good. You need to have an anchor point everywhere, in your office, everywhere. If you have that anchor point, it can be a simple chin-up bar in the doorway. You will hang from time to time.
Right.
But if you don't, for sure you will not.
Right.
And those are just basic two concepts, that will keep you moving. Instead of approaching it with a workout perspective, I tell you, spread it throughout the day. Put some squats in between your emails. Every third email, do it in a squat. Answer your phone in a squat. Wait for the train in the squat. That's a movement perspective, and that's what we want to do. We want to educate people on such things, but there is no simple solution there. It's education.